So up next, we have two speakers joining us to talk about data activation and leveraging that customer data to drive experiences that win. We've got Kashish Gupta, who's co-CEO and co-founder at Hightouch, as well as Alex Holt, who's vice president of audience strategy at Cars.com. Before they come out, we're going to show you a quick video by Hightouch, so please enjoy.
Hey everybody.
How's it going?
This room is significantly less full than it was last time in here. I'm a little insulted, but we'll try to get through it. No, we got the big room, so this feels very imposing. So my name's Alex Holt. They've already introduced me, but I'm the vice president of audience strategy and activation for Cars.com.
And I'm Kashish Gupta, co-founder and co-CEO of a company called Hightouch.
So the agenda for today is pretty simple. We've only got 30 minutes. We will try to make it as impactful and quick as we can. So first, we are just going to talk about our different companies and what we do. We'll move into supercharging iterable with customer data, talk about our omni-channel strategy at Cars a little bit and how Hightouch plays into that. And finally, talking about driving winning experiences in iterable, which is basically a case study. So a little overview of Cars.com, really Cars Inc. You guys are probably familiar with our retail site, our marketplace site, which is where you go, shop for vehicles, try to find a car that you're looking for, and ultimately connect with a dealer. What you probably don't know is over the past 3 or so years, we took a look at the shopping journey that most people go through to buy a car. And we realized that there were a lot of places that consumers have difficulty or feel anxiety about when walking into a dealership. And we wanted to architect a platform that enables every part of the consumer journey up to visiting the dealership and actually getting your hands on a car, which we still believe is really important. So in addition to our marketplace site, which we consider kind of a pre-tail solution, we also manage a couple of other things on the retail side, which would be our Dealer Inspire business, which manages dealer sites. So there's a seamless digital retailing experience from our marketplace to dealerships. We also know how difficult it is to handle financing negotiations when you're in the dealership looking at a salesperson. People really struggle knowing what the right price, what the right rate, what the right payment can be. So we also offer financing options on our platform. And the final piece is usually the trade-in. Like, how do you know you're getting the right price for your car? And so we have an AccuTrade solution that also allows consumers to get a guaranteed offer on their current vehicles. So when they're walking into the dealership, they know the car, they know what they're going to finance at, and they know what they're getting for their trade-in, so they can really just focus on, is this the car for me or not? And the fact that we've built this platform strategy really necessitated us to take a hard look at our consumer data and understand how we can unify the consumer experience across all of these parts of the journey and service our users to give them the most value possible. And that's where Hightouch came in.
So for Hightouch, we have one very, very simple philosophy, which is that data should be available at the tip of marketers, at the tip of the hands of marketers. And we have created a very, very simple product to, in less than an hour, take any piece of customer data you have in your company and put that data into iterable to be able to personalize your marketing campaigns. We call that data activation. because we feel that data, when it's in iterable, is active and ready for use for marketing. And we are super lucky to work with some of the largest B2C brands in the world, like PetSmart, the NBA, Cars.com, and super smart marketers such as yourselves and data folks such as Alex to work together and personalize campaigns. So the idea is things like, I want my email to have the next best offer for my customer, or to be personalized with the right time of day to ping my customer based on when they're usually online. Those are the kinds of things that marketers personalize with Hightouch, and the only way to do it is to have good data in iterable. So if there's anything you remember about Hightouch, just remember that we simply get good data into iterable in a very fast and efficient way, no reliance on the engineering teams at your companies. And with that, we're really here to listen to what Alex has to say about Cars.com, because they have an incredible story about how they personalize marketing.
Yeah, so I think the first piece of this really is how our stack works.
Happy to go a little bit more into this. So every single one of us has data in our company. We may not know where that is. It might be in some database, some spreadsheet, some other different silo across the company, but we all have customer data. And that is usually some prerequisite to being able to do marketing personalization. So the world that we've kind of built up is that we have data teams. They do a really good job of analyzing things like next offer, LTV, propensity to buy. How much should I spend on this customer before I stop marketing them? Those kinds of metrics that we all have in our companies somewhere or another. And really the missing link is, do we as marketers have access to that data, and can we use that data for marketing? So Hightouch sits right in the middle, right between the data team and the marketing team, to help bridge that gap without any engineering favors required. So that instead of asking for an engineering ticket that takes 1 to 2 months to eventually get that data in less than an hour, again, you should be able to get data into iterable. And that's really how simple the product is.
Yeah. One of the things, especially as you look into the CDP world, which is really what we're talking about here, there's a couple ways you can go. One of them is a single point of entry partnership where somebody handles event collection, accesses event storage, and does the activation layer. But when you take that approach, you ignore what is really a valid but challenging dialectic between marketers and engineers, which is engineers care first and foremost about governance, and marketers care about agility, right? So rather than taking a single partnership approach here, we created what I lovingly refer to as a Frankenstack. And we said, look, data team, we don't as marketers want to tell you how to collect, standardize, and store our data. All we care about is that it is best in class, real-time streaming data that we can activate at scale in a single place. So we took the event collection and storage piece, handed it to the data team, and they picked a technology called RudderStack, which is an incredibly flexible event collection and real-time data streaming solution. But then we said on the other side, as the place where our CDP gets monetized, we need control. We don't want to be burdened with having to do the types of engineering work that Kashish is talking about. We want to be able to directly access our data store and with a few clicks activate any data in our universe. And that's where Hightouch fits in. It's entirely owned by the marketing team, and it gives us an incredibly agile way to have an idea and activate on it without having to take it to a cross-functional team and get it prioritized. And what that leads to is rapid and granular personalization, right? If you're talking about shopping, researching, applying for credit, trading in a vehicle, looking at dealer reviews, these are all really different activities within one shopping journey, and we have to tailor our site experience and our marketing messaging to where you're at in that funnel and what you care about in that moment. And you can, with this personalization, drive some really cool results. Kashish has a great case study, and then I'll dig into mine.
Yeah, on the right side, you see the Grammarly use case. They're one of our customers. And imagine how hard it would be to set up one of these campaigns at one of our companies. You'd have to get the product team involved, the product analytics team involved. They would tell you what are these metrics for each customer. And then maybe at some point they would say, screw it, I'll just run this campaign myself and I'll write it in code. These campaigns usually take months to get off the ground, and we don't have months in the span of marketing time. Like, we need this done tomorrow. And so being able to get that data in iterable and then be able to write the template in iterable and perform that campaign in iterable is really the key. That's what we like to see happen in our customers.
Yeah. And The next piece here, this is the execution track. This might seem a little strategy focused, but I firmly believe that our mindset going into these conversations and executing our work, our mindset is just as important as what we do on a keyboard. And so I want to start with our first conceptual shift that we made thinking this way, which is kind of a different way to visualize a CDP. A CDP, if any of you work with it, how many people have a CDP in the room or work with a CDP? Okay. Not as many as I would have thought, probably because it takes a lot of work to stand up and it seems really confusing because it's some massive data table somewhere. What we did is we said, okay, let's put the consumer at the center of this experience, because normally your architecture is each of these platforms, and these are just representative, right? But you have a social, you have programmatic, you have search, you have YouTube, whatever, and you have your lifecycle marketing down with Iterable. Each of these is capturing events, audiences, and KPIs, probably based on a tag, probably based on some reports that are being aggregated by an analytics team, but the execution is completely disparate, right? You have your social team trying to drive for an efficient cost per click, you have your search team trying to drive to an efficient cost per sale or a cost per lead, and then you have your lifecycle team using much more robust data to create experiences, and all this is fundamentally disconnected. So we took the approach of what would it take to put the consumer at the center of all of our channels. And this is a representation of what we do with our CDP. And it starts with something we're probably all familiar with, personas, right? Normally these are brand marketing, qualitative. Oh, this is a country granola outdoor enthusiast who drives Subarus, right? And like some brand marketing agency came and told us that's a segment. But what if we started with data and worked our way back into those personas so we could make things like content choices? So we start thinking about that, and the way we get there is two groups of data. One is activity data, which we capture at a really granular level, and the other one is data science modeled data, like consumer lifetime value, propensity to return to our site, propensity to submit a lead, propensity to purchase a car, all sorts of different metrics. And what we end up with is about 174 attributes that we care about, but we think about them as Adyan, as one person. What would it take for me to give Adyan a really good experience from social all the way down to life cycle? And that's not always the case, but it's an easy example, because the second conceptual shift we made is to say that each of these is really good for something, right? You're probably not going to be able to prospect as easily, for instance, with Google search as you are with social. But rather than trying to think of social as a visit driver and search as a lead driver and programmatic as an awareness driver, it's like, how do we create custom media experiences for Adyan that drive towards an engagement with the brand that is deep enough that we have PII and can engage with life cycle? So we're moving from a cost per traffic to a cost per relationship, or a cost per sign up, or a cost per account creation, because you can save so much money by making life cycle the core of what you're doing and not spending so much to acquire. It can be an incredible cost savings, and you can reinvest that into your platform, into your data, take it to the bottom line. And Lifecycle can really guide incredible margin capture for the business by being the end goal of the other channels, right? So this is our framework, right? Start with the consumer, create powerful omni-channel experiences, drive towards Lifecycle. And that's the concept. So how do we, and that's where Hightouch comes in, right? Is like that 174-piece data store, right? It's impossible to engage with that as a marketer. Hightouch makes it really easy to explore and activate that data, and here's how we do it. Because who here has been stuck with a 1 to 3 month prioritization nightmare because they had a really cool idea and then they had to go to their teams and get it all done? Like, does anybody get caught up in that stuff? Trying to submit tickets and talk to 18 people about why this matters who don't understand marketing? Yeah. So we said, look, agility and governance, right? Let's put the governance on the data team, which is in the top left here, and create powerful customer data. Real-time event streaming into a data store that is clean, consistent, and dependable, so that we can run great lifecycle campaigns and also run campaigns in our other platforms off of a consistent audience profile. Like if I say I want to target engaged users who want to buy a Ford for between $20,000 and $25,000, and I want to get them to submit a lead in the next 7 days, historically, all those channels I showed, you'd have a different way of doing that. We want that to be the same. We want that to be governed. We want that to be consistent. So it is on the data team in the top left to create powerful consumer data. But ultimately, as you move through this life cycle of audience activation, it's really on marketing to be the governing body of what those audiences are. So once the data is there, there is really basically a single point setup. And I want to demystify this a little bit. This might seem complicated. It took us from contract signed to getting things activated about 5 weeks to do all of this for all of our CDP data store. It's a huge amount of data, and it took 5 weeks, and it's totally on marketing's table. Because once the data was created, all we have to do is surface that data in the Hightouch platform. And that sits with the marketing team. We actually handed that to our ad ops team and said, look, we need governance and we need consistency in how our audiences are trafficked. That's not really something you hear a lot, but it is the same concept, like with content or creative, right? You need it to be trafficked, you need it to be consistent across executions. And that actually lives with our ad ops team because Hightouch is so easy to use. You just click into the UI, you select the features you care about, you meet with your marketing stakeholders, identify all these cool audiences we want to target, and then the ad ops team just goes and checks all the boxes that would create that audience, and now it's there. From that point, we actually said, okay, well, who would know the most about what audience segments should be used where? What's the most valuable audience segment? How do we push that in a specific way to different channels? And we said, well, our analytics team probably knows that because they're measuring performance all the time. And again, because Hightouch is so easy to use, we just handed the refinement and like creating specific audiences to our analytics team. And so it's an owned resource. They sit within marketing. They understand our data. They understand our KPIs. And we just say, hey, analytics team, I want to target shopping cart abandoners. Right? And I want to target shopping cart abandoners who are likely to purchase a car in the next 30 days, who are likely to return to the site in the next 7 days. How do I do that? And they say, well, okay, for social you could do this, and for lifecycle you could do this. And because they're looking at the KPIs, they know how to do this the most effectively. They know how our channel distribution works, and they can move really quickly because their burden is just enabling and measuring marketing. So that's simple. Once they create the specific audiences that different channels need, it just goes straight to the channel owners. And all 174 features, these audiences, every piece of data is directly accessible and clickable by our channel owners, right? So really with the way that we did this, it sounds like a lot of work, but we kind of did a spray and pray first round of requirements gathering. And we just said, okay, what are the top 20 most important things we want to do this year? And like I said, within 5 weeks, we made it from CDP into Hightouch, into audiences, into channel owners. And now we've kind of got our baseline of data. And it's super flexible and accessible. And so all the stuff that you saw about activating different audience segments and event-based triggers and catalogs and iterable, if you were at the product conference or the product overview, all of that today we're actually managing through Hightouch because not only does it handle audiences, but it also handles product feeds. And so all of those features that we're talking about, the propensities and the consumer lifetime value, the brand affinity, the price affinity, that's all in Hightouch and it gets activated through our marketing team, and you can make all those decisions really quickly and easily for a lifecycle marketer, which is pretty cool. And then it goes straight back to the analytics team to say, let's measure performance. Is this working? Do we need other variables that we're not considering right now? And then we send that to the data science team. And that's really the only ticket we ever have to file, really, is if we're missing a piece of data, if we want to append data, if we want to model something new. But those are all enhancements. They're not the pay-to-play type of, oh man, I really need to execute this abandoner campaign tomorrow. It's like, oh, that'll take 3 weeks. Well, no, it'll take about 3 minutes. But we might want to know something else. And then we'll pass that back to the data team. But really, the important thing to take away here is that data really is the foundation, but everything about activating lives with marketing. So if you're thinking about structuring a team, or if you have some of these resources, this is how you can structure something with a technology like Hightouch to make it really easy for marketing to own the entire data strategy and activation across your entire consumer life cycle. So let's take an example of actually what this looked like. Shopper abandonment drip campaign. Pretty simple. Everybody's probably done some version of that. It'd be a cart abandonment. And the concept, again, is pretty simple, right? Over the course of your shopping journey, people are searching for products. You start to learn a little bit about what they like and don't like, and then all of a sudden, they stop. Well, historically, what's happened is that signal lived in a tag or lived in a database, and then the product information lived in another tag or database, and then matching the consumer to the product existed in a third party. And so our time to actually execute on this was really long. And what we'd like to be doing is within 3 hours ideally. If you're abandoning, 3 hours to 24, 26 hours. We'd like to be hitting you again and say, hey, if you have a high propensity to buy and we know what you're looking for, we'd like to say, hey, you forgot something. Are you interested in taking the next step? Did you run into something that you didn't like? Can we help you somehow? Can we make a recommendation, right? So we try to do that within about 1 day. If they don't engage, we'll try to re-engage them 1 or 2 times, just to keep dripping that email to them and try to push for the conversion, because what we know in our data, because we're able to match back our leads to car sales, is that if you have a high propensity consumer who's shopping on a marketplace, it's really about 72 hours before they make a purchase decision if they're going to buy. So again, with things living in tags and different data tables and with different vendors, when all of this was decentralized, 3 days, like that might be your first send. Because you have a batch job that flags the abandonment, then you have a batch job that flags, here's the product feed that they need, and then you have to send it into somewhere and match it up. And that just took forever, and so our conversion rate would fluctuate wildly in this campaign. But we know that 3-day window is so crucial, but we just couldn't get it done. Well, with Hightouch, we were able to centralize all of those components and create a really simple send. So if you look at this, there's really 2. That's an example on the left. What we were able to do with this send, if you're really an activation person, you can read the code there. I am not actually an email coder, so if I butcher this, don't blame me. But no, if you look at this, there's really 2 things. One is a product feed, and you have images, you have pricing, you have all sorts of different stuff. And what we were able to do by keeping the consumer signal and the product catalog both within Hightouch is we were able to create iterative product catalogs for each consumer based on their shopping experience, and leverage something called our best match algorithm, which is basically, we're not a marketplace site where you're shopping for toothpaste and household cleaners and TVs, right? We're not Target. You're only shopping for cars, but within cars, there's a lot of different attributes that you could be looking at. And so what we're able to do is use our best match sort algorithm, which powers our marketplace site, and we're able to create a custom model set or product set for every individual user based on their shopping experience. So we're serving them the 4 to 6 most relevant pieces of inventory for their search. We will pepper in direct retargeting for things that they had saved, but we also expand that out to, hey, you shop for this, we think you might want this. And what we see is when we're able to really make that kinetic and make that based off of a lot of really granular data around brand, price, make, model, mileage, whatever, the conversion rate on this email goes way up. And so because we're housing everything in one place and we're not depending on a lot of batch jobs, we can create these custom product sets in real time, essentially. And then we're able to create a custom event down there on the bottom that is a time-based event that says, okay, if they've created this set of actions on the site, they're this level of engaged, but all of a sudden we don't see them for 3 to 24 hours, fire off an event in real time into Hightouch, pull them into this audience, and trigger a send. And so you have custom product recommendations, you have real-time data signals for, in this case, abandonment, and you are able to leverage both granular customer data and our data science models, which previously were very hard to surface, all in real time. So it has basically taken the variability of our conversion rate out of this campaign. And on average, we've seen about a 3 percentage point increase in our conversion rate from this send, which in some cases was about a 3x, because we were fluctuating from 1.5% to 6%. Now we're really more on the 6% side. And in cars, getting 6% of people converting, it's a big purchase. That's a huge win for us. And especially if we're able to clean down and only target people who we know are going to buy. When that lead goes to that dealer, it's not just some random misclick or something. I mean, this is a real engaged consumer who's picked a product that was recommended to them and they're interested in buying. They make it to the dealership and they transact, and that drives retention on our marketplace. And this is just a cart abandon example, but you could do this in Hightouch because all of our data lives there. Any event that you care about, matter of hours, you can set up something like this, whether it's a financing abandon, whether it's they're looking for a specific trade-in offer, and we only want to re-engage them with dealers who are willing to pay a certain amount for their vehicle. We can send them custom things based on that. We can send them custom financing offers. We can, if we know something about the reviews of the dealers that they've been looking at, if they're honing in on a certain type of dealers, we can clean this feed up based on dealer reviews to match the profile of the dealer that the user is looking for. So the complexity is incredible, but the ease of use is also incredible, because these complex ideas that usually take forever to execute end up just being really intuitive, and you just need to have the idea, log into Hightouch, maybe talk to 1 or 2 teams within marketing, and you can activate. And it's really been a game changer for us. And again, the omni-channel component of this, being able to think like a lifecycle marketer, but apply that thinking consistently across channels, it positions lifecycle specifically to be a thought leader within the marketing org, rather than, in our case, because our PII data set is not as huge as we'd like it to be, it's growing and it's a good asset. But when you have a lot of people just pinging in and looking at a couple cars and bouncing without ever really engaging with us, executing at this level of granularity across our channels helps us create those relationships that end up with life cycle, and they can be as complex or as simple as we need them to be, but our time to live is just been cut to almost nothing. So if you take nothing else away, start with the consumer, use life cycle with a big capital L, and think about all your channels and try to lead the thinking and what it means to start with the consumer every single time we reach out to them. And make sure you're focusing on agility while enabling governance from your data team, and they'll appreciate it. They'll see you as a good stakeholder, and you'll have a seat at the table when you do need something, because you've taken so much off their plate. So that's been our experience. I hope this is somewhat helpful, and we do have a few minutes left if we want to do questions. So these are our contact info. If you want to bug either of us, you can scan the QR code. I think this goes to my LinkedIn or my email or something, but happy to take any questions anybody might have. I don't know if microphones made it onto the floor.
And just one closing thought to add is, this stuff is hard. Like, it's not supposed to be, but it is difficult. And so please do reach out to Alex or us. We have a whole team of solutions architects happy to help figure out how to make this stuff happen. Because like 2 years ago, if I had seen that campaign you just ran, I'd be like, shit, like, that's like probably going to take me a whole team of 10 engineers in like 2-3 months to make it happen. But over the past 2 years, I've learned so much about the iterable ecosystem, about the data ecosystem, that I now know it's possible to do that kind of task in less than a week. But bridging that gap was crazy for me to get over mentally. And so we're just here to help. Like, it doesn't matter if you buy the Hightouch product or not. That is really not the goal of this. It's really just to change how we think about how fast data can be used for marketing. And if all we get out of that is we just give each other advice, that's totally fine. Please do reach out.
Absolutely.
Cool. Any questions?
All right. Good.